Um, what an incredible honor and pleasure to have with us Keith Moffatt for this fifth anniversary edition of Living Histories. Keith, without further ado, I'm turning it over to you. Please tell us about Living Histories.
Thank you, Sri, and hello, everyone. This Living History talk is about the trajectory of my scientific career, and particularly about what got me started. I was born and bred in Edinburgh. You see the picture here, the capital of Scotland. Both of my parents were Scottish. I was educated at George Watson's College and then at Edinburgh University, where I read mathematics and physics. I show you here four of my outstanding teachers at Edinburgh, A.C. Aitken and W.L. Edge in pure mathematics, and Robin Schlapp and Nicholas Kemmer in theoretical physics. Their teaching was inspirational. One word can describe each of these luminaries. Aitken was scintillating. Edge was redoubtable. Schlapp, benevolent, and Kemmer, profound. Edge and Kemmer were both former fellows of Trinity College, Cambridge, and they encouraged me to move to Cambridge after graduating at Edinburgh. Could I have the next slide, please? Thank you. So I arrived at Trinity College in October 1957. It was a very long time ago, on an entrance scholarship to read more mathematics, and I had so much to learn. Trinity College, Cambridge has a huge reputation, and I was intensely privileged to study here. It was, after all, the college of legendary scientists, Isaac Newton in the 17th century, and James Clerk Maxwell in the 19th. More recently, it was the College of G.I. Taylor, one of the greatest engineering scientists of the 20th century, and of his Australian protege, George Batchelor, who moved to Cambridge by sea in 1944, a very dangerous voyage. Could I have the next slide, please? Here you see George Batchelor in 1957, when I first knew him. He was by then a world authority in fluid mechanics, and particularly on the central problem of turbulence. To paraphrase Einstein, this is still the most challenging unsolved problem in classical physics. Batchelor took me on as a research student in 1958 to work on turbulence. At that time, magnetohydrodynamics, or MHD for short, was an exciting field of study that was rapidly opening up. So I decided to combine turbulence and MHD in the subject of my PhD thesis, MHD turbulence, and its applications both in the plasma physics of controlled fusion devices like the tokamak and in the MHD of planets, stars, and galaxies. This led me naturally into the theory of the spontaneous growth of magnetic fields in conducting fluids, i.e. dynamo theory. This theory was at a very rudimentary stage in 1958. I have returned to turbulence and dynamo theory again and again over the last 6 decades. I was induced to publish a short autobiography earlier this year. I think we've moved one slide too far ahead. Yeah, thank you. To a short autobiography earlier this year with the title Flow, The Twists and Turns of a Life in Turbulence, which conveys some of the fascination of this field of research. Batchelor introduced me to IUTAM, the International Union of Theoretical and Applied Mechanics, and its congresses, held every 4 years. Ever since 1960, These became the stepping stones of my scientific career as described in this book. In 1961, I was appointed to an assistant lectureship at Cambridge University, coupled with a teaching fellowship at Trinity College. From then on, I was burdened with a heavy teaching load, but I tried to follow the example of my Edinburgh mentors and to make the teaching as exciting and inspiring as I could. I always attended the famous Friday afternoon fluid mechanics seminars in DAMTP, that is the Department of Applied Mathematics and Theoretical Physics. These seminars had a wonderfully broadening effect over the years. They would run from 4:30 till 6 p.m. and would then adjourn to the Anchor pub for extended, well-lubricated discussion till 7 or 8 in the evening. A bachelor soon roped me in to be an editor with him of the Journal of Fluid Mechanics, JFM, that he had founded in 1956. This gave me a wonderful perspective on the whole field and contact with brilliant researchers on the world stage, particularly USA, Japan, and Australia in the 1960s and 70s. Periods of sabbatical leave every few years allowed later for extended visits to universities in France, USA, Poland, Japan, and Italy, and to USSR, as it then was, and China in the 1980s. Could I have now the next slide, please? Can we move on one slide? Yeah, I've always found that teaching and research are natural partners. In fact, it was through struggling to make complex topics in maths and physics more easily intelligible to graduate students that I was led to important research ideas and to my early successes in research. One of these is illustrated here. It concerns my discovery of the helicity invariant of the very classical Euler equations in ideal fluid dynamics, which date back to 1756. This discovery was stimulated by my efforts to find a physical interpretation of an earlier invariant of MHD found by the astronomer Ludwig Volcher in 1958. The discovery of the helicity invariant was an exciting breakthrough, leading to important developments in dynamo theory and also in turbulence. It is the occasional breakthrough in scientific research of this kind that lends excitement and a great sense of worth and achievement to this type of research activity. Next slide, please. I've been very lucky and privileged to be the advisor of brilliant research students in Cambridge who have themselves gone on to distinguished scientific careers. Some of these are shown here. To all of them, I owe a great debt of gratitude. I learnt as much from them as I hope they learnt from me. It is through such a process of mutual teaching and learning that new ideas can emerge and flourish. And I'm very happy to be able to continue collaborative research in the fundamentals of fluid dynamics, even now as I enter my 10th decade. Next slide, please. So, to summarize, what got me started? Well, brilliant, inspiring teachers at school and university. What kept me going? Outstanding students who taught me as much as I taught them. And my key message to young and not so young researchers alike, teaching stimulates research and research invigorates teaching. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith, for a wonderfully inspiring talk. We are um, still processing the talk. Let me get started with questions. Um, would you share, in the spirit of the one word each you shared in the beginning of the talk for each of the stalwarts who inspired you? Would you share one word that describes your living history?
Oh. Well, it's been very much, well, one word is difficult.
Okay.
It takes a lot of thought to produce the appropriate word, but it's been a growing process all the way. That's all I can say. Growing development, maybe, over a long period.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me pick up on what you said about teaching and research being inseparable for you. I am curious um, about, as you went through these decades in academia, whether you found warm embrace of this perspective, resistance to this perspective, or a bit of both.
Um, I always found it helpful, and I always found a close relationship between teaching and research. And it started actually way back 1963. I had to set an exam question for my graduate students at what's called Part 3 Mathematics. And I set a problem, and of course, the examiners came, my co examiners had to work out the solution first. And they said, this is too difficult. What it meant was they couldn't solve it. And I looked at it more closely myself, and I found, yes, it was too difficult. It was actually very, very interesting, the problem. And it led me to the discovery of what's called corner eddies in a flow in a two-dimensional flow in a corner at low Reynolds number, very viscous, you get an infinite sequence of eddies. And that was a very, very surprising result. But it was really the teaching, or more the examining of a course of teaching, that led to this interesting research work. And it's work that is still being very, very widely cited. It comes up again and again, these corner eddies in low Reynolds number situations.
Um, Thank you so much, Keith. We are almost out of time. I'm wondering if you have any last wise words you would like to share before I close the recording.
Well, I would just say that for me, family support has been wonderful, particularly my wife. We've been married for 65 years. It's a long
Congratulations.
time. And she's always been wonderfully supportive. So I think that's very important. Find a very good supportive partner.
On that very inspiring note, thank you again, Keith. We are honored to have your living histories as part of this series.